Today we're going to study Daniel chapter 3. King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold, 60 cubits high and 6 cubits wide, and set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. According to those measurements, in our feet and inches and stuff, it would be 90 feet high and 9 feet wide. That is huge. So you can imagine how big this statue is. Well, we're going to find out what are people supposed to do with this image. Verse 2. He then summoned the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the other provincial officers to come to the dedication of the image he had set up. So the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the other provincial officers assembled for the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up, and they stood before it. Then the herald loudly proclaimed, "Nations and peoples of every language, this is what you are commanded to do. As soon as you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music, you must fall down and worship the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Whoever does not fall down and worship will immediately be thrown into a blazing furnace." Uh-oh. This is going to create trouble for the Jewish people who don't want to break God's law because they're not told never to worship idols. However, we've got a lot of weak Jewish people in this time that are living in Babylon. They had already been worshiping idols, but not Daniel, not his friends Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And for some reason, Daniel is not mentioned in this story at all. Maybe because he was busy doing something in the kingdom and it's only for the people again in these provinces. We know that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were put as administrators over some of those provinces. So they would have been some of the people that would have been asked to bow down and worship this image. Let's find out what happens. Verse 7. Therefore, as soon as they heard the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, and all kinds of music, all the nations and peoples of every language fell down and worshipped the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. At this time, some astrologers came forward and denounced the Jews. They said to King Nebuchadnezzar, "May the king live forever. Your Majesty has issued a decree that everyone who hears the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music must fall down and worship the image of gold, and that whoever does not fall down and worship will be thrown into a blazing furnace. But there are some Jews," notice how he didn't say all the Jews, "there are some Jews whom you have set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They pay no attention to you, your Majesty. They neither serve your gods nor worship the image of gold you have set up." Wow. Out of all the people of the Jews that were there in the provinces, there's only 3 men that are named of the Jews that are not bowing down and worshiping this image. That again shows how far the Jewish people have fallen away. That's part of why they were brought into captivity, is because they had been worshiping false god idols and sacrificing their children to these gods and intermarrying when they were told not to. So they have been very wicked, and they're still not learning anything yet. It's going to take a full 70 years before there's a bigger amount of people that are going to repent for the evil that they've done. But Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and Daniel were righteous from the time that they were put into captivity. And this goes to show that when punishment comes to a nation, even the righteous sometimes have to suffer. But God has protected Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and Daniel. He's come to their aid over and over again, and we're going to see how he comes to their aid here as well. When our purpose is not completed, God is not going to allow somebody to take us out. He can supernaturally protect us. But when it is our time to go, he will allow even what evil people are doing to people that are faithful. He'll allow those people to kill them. We see that going on all over the world, where there's countries that will kill the Christians and they're being slaughtered all over the world. That's because their time on this earth is finished. and he'll allow even wicked people to take us out at times. But as long as we stand firm to the end, we're going to be saved. So we don't need to worry about what man may do to our bodies. That's what it talks about in Matthew 10:28. Do not be afraid of those who kill your body, but cannot kill your soul. Rather, be afraid of the one who can destroy both your soul and body in hell. And God is the only one that can do that. Satan thinks he can, but we have to let him. He can't. He can tempt us, but we don't have to give up our faith. And as long as we'll stay strong, even through the trials and suffering, we will have the victory. Okay, verse 13. Furious with rage, Nebuchadnezzar summoned Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So these men were brought before the king, and Nebuchadnezzar said to them, Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the image of gold I have set up? Now, when you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music, if you are ready to fall down and worship the image I made, very good. But if you do not worship it, you will be thrown immediately into a blazing furnace. Then what God will be able to rescue you from my hand? He is angry. He likes these men, but because they won't worship his image, he's furious at them, and he doesn't care whether they die or not. He's saying, I'm going to give you one more chance, and if you don't bow down when you hear the sound of the instruments, I'm going to throw you into that blazing furnace. And not only is he going to throw them in with the regular temperature, we're going to see what he does. Verse 16. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to him, King Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. But even if he doesn't, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up. I think their answer shows their confidence in God, but they're not being presumptuous either. Unless God has told them he's going to save them, they can have that confidence that no matter what, they're not going to be hurt. And maybe God has done that. They seem to have a lot of confidence, but they're willing to say that even if he doesn't, don't think you got the victory, because we still won't serve you, and we'll stand before our God and we'll be fine. So I'm not sure which way it goes. Some people believe that they had the confidence to know God had already told them that he was going to save them. Others think because they had to put in that last little bit about even if he doesn't, that we won't serve you, that they really weren't told one way or the other. They just knew he could, but they weren't sure what his answer would be. Verse 19. Then Nebuchadnezzar was furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and his attitude toward them changed. He ordered the furnace heated 7 times hotter than usual, and commanded some of the strongest soldiers in his army to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the blazing furnace. So these men, wearing their robes, trousers, turbans, and other clothes, were bound and thrown into the blazing furnace. So what does he do? He's so angry, he heats it up 7 times the normal heat range that he normally burns things with. So it is so hot that we're going to see that even these strong soldiers who he is going to allow to escort these 3, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, to the furnace, when they open that furnace, they get burned up. They die from the heat that comes out. That's how hot it is. Verse 22. The king's command was so urgent and the furnace so hot that the flames of the fire killed the soldiers who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men, firmly tied, fell into the blazing furnace. So they have all their clothes on, they're tied up, they're thrown into the furnace. The men who put those soldiers that took them there, they died. Let's see what's going to happen to these 3. Verse 24. Then King Nebuchadnezzar leaped to his feet in amazement and asked his advisors, Weren't there 3 men that we tied up and threw into the fire? They replied, Certainly, your majesty. He said, Look, I see 4 men walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods. So what does he see? Not just the three men he threw in there, he sees a fourth person, and he says it looks like a son of the gods, which some people believe that this was Jesus that made an appearance. That there's been times that different people have had the Lord appear before them. They think the time that Abraham was negotiating with someone that he called the Lord, they think that was appearance by Jesus. They think this was an appearance by Jesus. When Jacob was wrestling, they think that possibly that could have been Jesus. There's different times that people think that Jesus made an appearance before he actually came in the human form onto the earth. So we'll have to wait and see. That's just a lot of people's opinions, and we can't really know for sure. Verse 26. Nebuchadnezzar then approached the opening of the blazing furnace and shouted, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out, come here. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out of the fire, and the satraps, prefects, governors, and royal advisors crowded around them. They saw that the fire had not harmed their bodies, nor was a hair on their heads singed. Their robes were not scorched, and there was no smell of fire on them. Everybody understood that their God had just done a miracle. They're all in shock. They couldn't believe that here these soldiers died from just throwing them in. These men were walking around in the furnace, and they had not one little hair even that had been burned or singed. Nothing on their clothes were ruined. They didn't even have the smell of smoke. Okay, verse 28. Then Nebuchadnezzar said, Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and rescued his servants. They trusted in him and defied the king's command and were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their own. And here's the part where we see now, finally Nebuchadnezzar is giving God the glory. The last chapter we didn't hear, he was really raising up Daniel and praising Daniel for being able to interpret the dream. And he didn't really say a whole lot about the God of Daniel, but here he's starting to recognize that he's got to start worshiping this true God. And he's still going to worship his other idols, but he thinks if he adds Daniel's God, that's going to be okay. And we know that that isn't okay, but in his mind, he thinks it is. So let's see what he says in verse 29. Therefore, I decree that the people of any nation or language who say anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be cut into pieces and their houses be turned in piles of rubble, for no other God can save in this way. Well, at least he's holding the true God up higher than his other gods, but he still is going to be idol worshiping. Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon.